Whoa. 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 Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready? Because we're about to go in. Thank you, FROMily. We're back with another recap of our favorite I don't know where we are show from. I'm your host with the most, Anthony, and we're picking up right where we left off last week with Elgin getting drowned in a tub by a zombie? This week's episode is titled Forest for the Trees. The title is an expression to describe someone who is too involved in the details of a problem to look at the situation as a whole. The term is 100% appropriate as we finally get a glimpse of what we think Martin was warning us about way back in episode 2. You should remember that when Boyd met Martin in the cave, that he warned Boyd that the creatures that come out of the forest are just the tip of the spear, and he was alluding to the latest issue when he asked Boyd if Abbey was right and this is all a dream. The threat level has undoubtedly gone up now, and it is intense. But first, do me a favor. If you're new here, please consider giving this channel a like and subscribe to keep up with our weekly From analysis and breakdown, and enable notifications so you're able to watch these videos right after the episode airs. I want to thank all of you who have subscribed and helped this channel get the attention I think it deserves. I've been looking over the stats and I noticed that about 92% of you all watching are not subscribed. Please. Look, I know, but YouTube still uses this method to help channels like me grow even in 2023. My God-given goal is to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of this summer, so please subscribe. Now, back to From. This week's episode starts off a lot differently than expected, with Kenny and his mom spending some time together in the house and having a friendly conversation. Things are looking nice and homey for the latest effective jump scare, and that happens when the phone rings. Kenny cautiously answers the phone, says hello, but nobody answers. Suddenly, the camera pans to the stove and we see cicadas boiling in the pot. Next, Kenny sees that dang music box again with the broken ballerina. And finally, one of the cicadas fly out of the boiling pot and burns Kenny on his arm. Kenny is then awoken by his mom, and it seems like Kenny was just having a nightmare. That is, until he sees a mark on his arm in the same spot that the cicada burnt him. Like, oh We then switch back to Randall and Jim trying to MacGyver the antenna to the drone, and Randall asks Jim a really pertinent question. What's the point? Let's say this is one big experiment. For what? And Randall's questioning is very interesting. He has a sort of Batman way of conversationally asking questions without giving much information about himself. He's absolutely probing Jim hard for information, and Jim is completely oblivious to this. The most telling thing he does say is when he mentions that he has a nephew, and he throws a light jab that if they really want to break people, I have a few ex-girlfriends they could hire. But he also mentions how Jim has more constraint than he does when they start discussing Sarah. He states the fact that she's still breathing. You have a lot more restraint than I do. They give the drone a try, and we see that the drone does not get very much height while holding the antenna. Randall then starts talking about the reason why they're trying to get the radio to work and states if someone out here really wanted to help, they would find a way to help. And he encourages Jim to look on the inside and reasserts his last theory that there has to be someone on the inside. He asks Jim about when he arrived and wonders who laid out all the rules. Jim mentioned that it was Boyd, Donna, and Father Kotri. Randall doesn't know anything about Father Kotri, and Jim mentions how he died the night of the Colony House massacre. Randall then asks Jim, out of all the people who died since he's been here, how many times has he seen it happen? What if all the people who died were in on it? Jim then mentions Brick and Tom, the two who died when the house collapsed on Jim. And Randall mentions that he didn't examine the bodies well enough to see if what he saw was actually real. Randall continues to monologue about his theory when Jim mentions Sarah's brother Nathan and how he died when she slit his throat. Randall continues anyway and theorizes that maybe Nathan was in on it and that his death was all just for show. Now, I got to admit that even though I don't like the guy, he is making some valid points. From is the kind of show that makes me question everything, including the things that I see. The show tends to have a lot of off-screen deaths that could make us question everything. There are a few that we've seen on camera that I think are interesting, including Toby, Nathan, and Father Khatri, but there's always been a consistency that when these characters died, that they died by some sort of cut or puncture to the throat. We still don't know why the voices told Sarah to kill Toby, and we aren't really sure what it is that she did to him after she killed him when she was talking to the voices and asked them all of it. I'm not saying that I agree with the guy, but I do think he's asking some valid questions from his perspective. We then switch to Boyd in the post office, and in comes Sarah. Oh snap, Sarah. We haven't seen Sarah since Kenny helped her carry her stuff out of the diner. Sarah bursts in the room all excited and tells Boyd that she wants to go back out into the woods. Boyd is surprised by the request, and Sarah tells Boyd that she wants to go back out with a talisman and theorizes that maybe the answers are out there and they didn't go out far enough. Boyd mentions how whatever is out there put them right back into town. Sarah reaffirms that she wants to go back out to help and that there's no place for her here anymore. Boyd points out that there's a difference between going out there and running away from here. Sarah tells him that she can't just sit in the church anymore and that there's nothing for her to do. Boyd says, okay, good. Now we're talking about problems that we can fix. We then switch to Tabitha and Jade approaching the cave that she explored with Victor earlier in the season. Something interesting is that we can see the trees are much further along than they were in previous episodes, with a lot of their leaves having fallen to the ground, and it just looks colder outside. We know that this is a theme that is happening in the background with the weather changing, and I can't possibly imagine that it's at all a good thing. Tabitha mentions that this is where she was with Victor and where she saw the children. Jade then mentions that this can't be a coincidence and then asks Tabitha how much she knows about chaos theory and how this can't be an accident, that it must be connected. Now, chaos theory states that within the apparent randomness of chaotic complex systems, there are underlying patterns, interconnection, constant feedback loops, repetition, self-similarity, fractals, and self-organization. Jade then explains the concept of the butterfly effect to Tabitha, who seems a little confused by what point Jade is trying to make. Jade then realizes that Victor was with her in the cave, but he never mentioned anything to him about seeing the symbol on the wall. Jade frustratingly points out how Victor is the common denominator in both of their experiences. We then switch to Victor knocking on the door to Mrs. Liu's house, and Julie answers the door. Victor asks Julie, "Is Ethan home?" And Julie calls Ethan to come downstairs and meet with his friend. Am I the only one who's been feeling deja vu here? These two constantly remind me of my childhood, hanging out with friends and how we spoke. It's just so adorable. Ethan heads downstairs and he and Victor exchange pleasantries when Victor tells him that he has a present for him. Victor presents Ethan with a coat to wear for when it gets cold and tells him that it used to belong to him. Ethan also has a gift for Victor and hands him a drawing of himself. Victor refuses the gift, explaining pictures are for things that are gone. Ethan points out that Victor often forgets things, and if something happens to him, he wouldn't want Victor to forget him. Victor is increasingly bothered by the conversation and blurts out, "Don't talk like that," to Ethan before handing him back the picture. Ethan lets him know that if Victor doesn't want the picture, then Ethan doesn't want the coat. Julie then heads downstairs to take Ethan to help Mrs. Liu, and Ethan invites Victor to come with him. We then switch to Ellis and Boyd having a conversation in Colony House. To all of our surprise, our boy Ellis is back on his feet, walking around like a new man. Yo, my guy doesn't even seem to be in any pain whatsoever, with even Boyd being perplexed by the situation, asking Ellis if Christy checked him out, and Ellis mentions that Christy is even more surprised than Boyd. Now, for those who haven't noticed, people heal very, very quickly in this town. We've seen this on more than one occasion, with Ethan's leg healing quickly after being impaled with a metal rod, Ellis's rapid healing from a broken arm, Boyd's arm healing from when Martin scratched him, and Boyd's hand healing seemingly pretty quickly. And now Ellis is back on his feet after suffering a stab wound to the abdomen after just a few days. We don't know for sure why, but people heal very quickly, and I have a theory that it must have something to do with the food that they eat. Now, I've been teasing it in the comments for a while, but I kind of agree with Randall that there might be people inside the town who are in on this whole experiment. One of the people I'm very suspicious of is Mrs. Liu, as she is someone who is a central figure when it comes to some critical moments in the story. She was right next to Sarah right before Sarah got the message to kill the boy. Mrs. Lou was the one who handed Jade the book with the picture of Christopher and a young Victor. She's also in charge of the food and the supplies. I have a theory that the food that the characters eat is somehow giving them the ability to heal at a much faster rate than normal. We know that Donna grows a lot of crops outside of Colony House, and we know that Mrs. Lou cooks food for people with those crops and with the livestock that randomly shows up in town. Nobody questions Mrs. Lou and her increasingly good English, but I've been suspicious of her for a while, along with the tea that she often encourages people to drink. I need more evidence to confirm my theory, but just so that all of you know, Mrs. Lou is on my sus list. Back to Boyd and Ellis. Ellis is grinning from ear to ear and tells Boyd that he has some news for him. But Donna interrupts the conversation, asking to speak to Boyd. Ellis says that he'll tell Boyd his news later. We then switch to Boyd and Donna discussing Sarah. Apparently, Boyd is asking Donna to help give Sarah something to do because she's bored. And Donna half-heartedly agrees because she has way more important things on her mind. She has Ellis trying to heal, Dale locked up in a room, and poor Elgin almost drowned in his sleep. And Boyd is like, wait, what? We then switch to Elgin sitting in a room, sitting in a chair using a crochet. Some of you might remember that Elgin mentioned that he used to crochet owls every weekend with his grandmother before he arrived in town. It was always owls. I find it super interesting that Elgin is doing this now, right after what happened to him the night before. Just to add a little context, owls are natural predators of crows. Crows have been used as an iconography tool in this show since the beginning, and I think they're supposed to be representative of the bad things in this town, including the monsters. I think Elgin's grandmother may have been in this town before and somehow escaped, and when she did, she was deeply traumatized to the point where she would constantly make crochet owls as a form of protection. I think that's why Elgin recognized the town when he first arrived, and I think that's why he's making crochet owls now after he was attacked in his sleep. I think Elgin knows a lot more about this town than he's telling, but he also seems very sus in his behavior around town. He's also wearing that crow t-shirt again, so there's that. Boyd asks Elgin about his nightmare, and Elgin tells him how he was sitting in the bathtub in his dream when something pushed him in the water, when someone shook him awake, and he started spitting up water. And he wonders, how's that even possible? Boyd then asks Elgin if he told anyone about what happened in the clinic, and Elgin lies and said that he didn't. Boyd then shows Elgin the bile that they extracted from Smiley's body, saying that it might help them protect themselves from the monsters, but he isn't sure how to put it inside another one of those monsters without getting themselves killed. Elgin gives a fantastic idea and suggests that they try to make silver bullets. We then switch to Victor, Julie, and Ethan in Mrs. Lou's diner, and they're helping fold things up. We join in halfway through an ongoing conversation with Victor telling Ethan he's making something up, and Ethan says he's not, and asks Julie to verify and tell Victor it's real. Julie is just as confused as we are, and she says, "What's real?" And Ethan says, "The internet." And oh shit, you just made me feel really, really old. Like, whoo. Yo, shout out to all my former AOL users and friends who drove their parents crazy for tying up the phone line all day and night. Julie confirms that the internet is a thing, and yo, I'm sorry, I'm still feeling a little old here. Like, Mrs. Lou then walks in and asks Victor to help her carry something. Julie notices that Ethan is still wearing the jacket that Victor gave him, and he mentions how he likes it. And then he finds what looks like a toy crayon in the pocket. Ethan then shows the toy to Victor, who is surprised to see the item. Ethan tells him he found it in the pocket when we're treated to another flashback. We see a young Victor in the cellar outside of town, and it looks like he's speaking to his mother. This is the first time we see Victor's mom in this show, and we see her handing the toy to young Victor, telling him that she needs him to be brave. The flashback is then interrupted by Jade bursting into the diner with Tabitha, and he's got some questions. Jade wants to know why Victor didn't honor their deal for Victor to tell him everything he knew about that symbol. I find it interesting that Tabitha is just watching her friend Victor get yoked up with only Julie stepping up to defend him. I also noticed that as soon as Jade puts hands on Victor, Victor decides that now's a good time to pick up that lunchbox of his holding his secret gun, and then he decides to leave. Jade follows Victor out of the diner, continually badgering him with questions, asking why Victor didn't mention that he saw the symbol in the tunnels outside of town. Real quick, something else I noticed in this scene is it's really foggy outside. Like really, really foggy. Visibility is at an all-time low, and it's difficult to make out even the randoms that walk around in the background. Jade is fed up with Victor withholding information and urges him to share everything he knows about everything that he's seen. And I gotta tell you, when I first saw this scene unfolding, I truly believed that Jade was about to get shot. Jade doesn't get shot, and instead Jade continues and tells Victor that it all matters because that might be how they go home. And he asks Victor, he pleads with him, doesn't he want that? Wouldn't he like to go home? And then Victor drops an ice cold fact and tells him, this is my home. Tabitha berates Jade for being so harsh before Jade just blurts out, great, you're yelling at me again. And Tabitha runs off to follow after Victor. We then switch to Sarah sitting in the church playing with the pieces of the ornament that she made with her brother Nathan that got destroyed by Kenny. Randall and Jim burst into the room and they want to ask Sarah some questions. Something interesting, to me anyway, is that there's now a mailbox inside the church. Randall leans up on it and, maybe I missed it, but I don't remember this mailbox being in here before. Also, when Jim begins to introduce Randall to Sarah, she cuts him off and states that she knows who he is. How? How does she know him? Jim and Randall start interrogating Sarah, asking where she was going and where she was coming from when she arrived here with her brother. Sarah realizes that something's not right and she stands up defensively. She explains that she was headed back to Boston and on her way from New Hope, Pennsylvania. Now, I did a quick online search and found that New Hope is a borough in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, with a population of just 2,612 according to the 2020 census. New Hope is located approximately 30 miles north of Philadelphia and is along the route of the Old York Road, the former main highway between Philadelphia and New York City. It was generally regarded as the halfway point where travelers would stay overnight and be ferried across the Delaware River the next morning. The night prior to George Washington's crossing of the Delaware River, he's said to have lodged in New Hope. He destroyed the ferry so that the British could not follow him, and after the battles of Trenton and Princeton, when the British troops were sweeping the area for American forces, there was no response when they rang for the ferry. The British assumed the town was sympathetic to the colonial forces and shelled the town. Several of the older structures in the town still claim to have unexploded British ordnance lodged in their roof beams. I think there's also an Amish community near that part of Pennsylvania. I'm not 100% sure as it's been a while since I've been in that part of PA, so don't hold me to that, but it really might explain why Nathan came to bring her home. If Sarah grew up Amish, then that would give us insight into why she was so close to her brother, why they made ornaments as the Amish create a lot of cool stuff, and it would explain why Sarah dresses the way that she does. Maybe she and Nathan left behind the Amish lifestyle in favor of living in Boston? Maybe. Jim begins asking Sarah about that day in the barn, and Sarah doesn't want to talk about it, which seems to raise Randall's suspicion. Jim waves him off and continues talking, saying that he knows that she didn't want to hurt Ethan. Randall is all out of patience and just asks Sarah, "Is your brother still alive?" Sarah is shocked by the question when, out of nowhere, Donna comes walking in. Wait, Donna comes walking in? Into Father Cautry's house? Have we ever seen her here before? Like, what the goose? Donna walks in with some clothes and wants to know what's going on, and Randall remarks how convenient it is that she arrived now. She then mentions how Boyd wanted to give Sarah some work and she wants her to stitch the clothes that she brought. And she also says for Jim and Randall to get the F out. Randall decides to confront Donna and they bicker a bit before Jim ushers Randall to leave. Donna asks if Sarah is okay, and Sarah wants to know why they think Nathan is alive. Randall and Jim talk a bit, with Randall stating he thinks Donna might know more than she's sharing. Jim does not like Randall's methods at all and tries to divert Randall to a new task. He thinks they need to watch what the monsters do when they don't think anyone is looking. Jim suggests that they stay the night in the RV and watch the creatures when they think they aren't being watched. We then switch to Jim entering the diner with Jim looking for Tabitha. Ethan and Julie are here and tell Jim that Tabitha left with Victor and Jade. Jim wants to talk to Julie and explains to her that he won't be in the house tonight and that he's going to stay the night in the RV with a talisman. He tells Julie to tell Tabitha and he promises her that he's going to be careful. We then see Jim leaving the diner and running back into Donna, who promptly asks Jim, "Are you some kind of moron?" Jim explains that he's just looking for answers, and Donna presses him about he and Randall questioning Sarah if Nathan is still alive. Donna warns Jim that Randall is a powder keg, and we'll get to that one later. Jim lies and says that he didn't tell Randall about the voice on the radio in order to stop Donna from questioning him further. Interestingly, Randall is observing the whole thing from the terrace of his condo. We then switch to Victor in his room alone in Colony House, and we get treated to another flashback of young Victor talking to his mom from inside the cellar. She gives Victor the toy that we saw Ethan with earlier and tells Victor to stay in the cellar and not come out until morning. We then hear a knock at Victor's door, and Tabitha is there wanting to talk to Victor. She starts off softly and thanks Victor for giving Ethan the coat. Tabitha sees the toy on Victor's desk and mentions that she recognizes the toy and how Ethan told her that he found it in the pocket of the coat. Now, I don't remember seeing Tabitha revisit the diner, but I'm just gonna guess all of this happened off camera. She hands the toy back to Victor and then asks him why he didn't tell Jade that he saw the symbol in the tunnels. Victor seems genuinely concerned and tells her that it's not good that people look for answers because when they do, that's when they don't come back. This hits me a little when Victor delivers this line. We only know a little bit about the trauma that Victor has suffered, but alright, you know what, let's just get back to it. Victor then starts talking to Tabitha about his mother. He explains that his mother told him that they were going home the night that the bad things happened, but he doesn't remember, but the pictures might. He explains that he has pictures that he put somewhere else, far away so that he doesn't have to look at them. He doesn't have to remember, so that nobody else would die, and he tells Tabitha that he knows where he put them. Now, this is an interesting statement from Victor. He said he put them away so that nobody else would have to die. And my mind immediately began to wonder, why would Victor remembering something lead to people dying? Is Victor the boogeyman? You know what? I'm going to save that one for a whole nother time. We then switch to Boyd walking onto the porch of Mrs. Lou's house. Kenny answers the door, and Boyd immediately notices the mark on Kenny's arm, with Kenny remarking that he somehow managed to burn himself in his sleep. Boyd looks at the mark but decides not to talk to Kenny about Elgin's comparable experience in his sleep. Yep, we're back to not talking about stuff again. Boyd tells Kenny how Elgin gave him an idea to coat bullets in the bile from Smiley's body so that they can be used as a weapon from a safe distance. Kenny seems to like the idea and suggests that they go get more of that bile. We then switch to Christy and Marielle inside of the clinic, with Marielle suffering from her withdrawal symptoms. Boyd and Kenny walk in and ask what's going on. Christy explains that something is happening downstairs when they all start making their way down there. Boyd and Kenny decide to head down to investigate, with Kenny keeping one hand on his gun. They hear some noises coming from the boiler room and slowly start making their way inside. Boyd rushes into the room and sees that the sheet over Smiley's body is moving. Boyd pulls back the sheet to see cicadas flying out of Smiley's body. We then see Kenny and Boyd head back upstairs, with Kenny sharing what happened to him in his dream. Yes, Kenny has some sense and starts talking about the commonalities in his dream and what they saw downstairs. Christy then speaks up about how Elgin said he also had something happen to him in his dream. And yes, these people are connecting dots that should have been connected a long time ago, but we're getting there. Kenny also mentions how he saw the music box when one of the cicadas came out and burned his arm, when Marielle blurts out, "Are you honestly saying that our effing dreams can hurt us now?" Yes. OMG, yes they can. FROMily, things have just picked up to a whole new level of scary. Our characters are now being attacked by their dreams. Yes, cue up that Freddy Krueger music because shit just got real. Donna then comes walking into the clinic calling out for Christy when she notices the gathering of people. We then switch to Victor walking through the car graveyard with Tabitha. They make their way to Victor's mom's car when Victor begins softly saying, "A nice lady and Ethan is my friend. I want to help, but I'm afraid to remember." Tabitha tells Victor to be brave, and he tells Tabitha that's what his mom said to him that night. We then switch to Boyd and Donna, who are in the basement of the clinic, with Donna pissed that Boyd did not tell her about the dead creature. Boyd tries to talk his way out of it, but Donna isn't with the shit. Boyd walks her into the room to show him the corpse and the cicadas that were flying out. Donna gets a good look at the dead body, but none of the cicadas are here. Donna tells him that the bugs probably scattered and they need to burn this body now. We then switch to Boyd and Kenny carrying the creature's body into Boyd's barrel wagon. Boyd and Donna finalize the details on how they're going to burn the body, and they start making plans for everybody to sleep in shifts in a central location. Boyd says that he'll bring Sarah to the station and suggests that Christy and Marielle join him there. Christy refuses to stay in the same place as Sarah and asks if she can stay in Colony House instead. Donna begins to leave, but as she's walking away, we catch a glimpse of your boy Randall spying on everyone from the woods. We then switch back to Tabitha and Victor, with Victor opening up the trunk of his mother's car. He sees the pictures, and you can see that a flood of memories overwhelm him as he begins looking through the pictures. He begins having a bad reaction as we see glimpses of flashbacks of Victor in the cellar outside of town when he finally comes across, oh my God, Victor has a sister. There's a drawing of Victor and a little girl named Eloise. The drawings in the trunk aren't Victor's drawings. They belong to his sister. Hold on. I'm not crying. I'm not crying. I'm not. Victor breaks down and we see his mother left him and his sister in the cellar, telling Victor to keep an eye on her, but Eloise chases after her mom with Victor staying behind in the cellar, afraid. Victor is going through it, and man, Scott McCord, my guy, man, you are acting your ass off this season. I have so many questions. There's so many interesting things glimpsed in the drawings, but thankfully, I slowed it down and we can have a closer look at it for ourselves. First, we see a picture of what looks like a bunch of people standing outside the cellar in which Victor was hiding. Next to that, we have a picture of what looks like a bunch of faces in a row. We also have a picture of someone waving while standing in front of either a long car or a bus. Behind that is a picture of what looks like the moon in the night sky. And right after that, we see a picture of what looks like someone getting shot. My guess is that this is a drawing of Christopher shooting people while smiling. A blink and you miss it drawing is of people hiding out in the diner at night while someone dressed in white is walking around outside. Another blink and you miss it drawing is that of two men dressed in all blue while holding sticks or rifles. My guess is that these are two Civil War soldiers like the one we saw haunting Jade that day in the woods. In the next shot, we see a bunch more drawings. There's one in the lower left of a bunch of smiling faces. My guess is that these are the garbage pail kids that haunt Tabitha. We also see what looks like the tree that Boyd saw in the woods with the bottles hanging from the branches. We see another drawing of a person who doesn't look too happy, giving a menacing look to a small person dressed in all white. We also have two more drawings here, with one being a picture of a house with stars and weird red circles in the sky. There's also one more picture, but for the life of me, I don't know what this last picture is. Is this a picture of the Crominacle or the Lonely Dragon from Ethan's stories? This entire moment is packed with clues, and there's more for us to analyze while trying to get to the bottom of this mystery. Seeing these pictures absolutely reinforces our theory that this place in which everyone is trapped has cycles, with people playing specific roles in whatever it is their captors want them to do. The Garbage Pail Kids showing up in Victor's sister's drawings proves that someone else before Tabitha saw these kids, just like Christopher was haunted by the symbol before Jade. They are each critical to solving the mystery of this place, and hopefully they can do it sooner than later before something tragic happens. But yeah, poor Victor. We then switch to Donna, who's making her way back to Colony House, with Randall approaching her, stating that he comes in peace and wants to apologize. He even throws her a disarming, "We're all in this together." We then switch to Boyd and Kenny in the middle of the woods, pouring gasoline on Smiley's body. Boyd lets Kenny do the honors of lighting it on fire, and man, that thing goes up quick. What would they have done if there'd been a forest fire? Kenny comments on how he's used to being scared all the time, but he's speaking for all of us when he says that things coming out of their dreams is a kind of scary that even he can't imagine. We then switch back to Tabitha and Victor looking over Eloise's drawings. We see a lot of the same drawings we saw before, but we also see a couple of new ones. There's a better look at this picture from earlier with the boy in white, but this time we see that there's a boy and a girl in here. My guess is that these two are Victor and Eloise. We see another picture of what looks like a creepy face, but the most interesting ones to me are the ones over here with what looks like Victor, his sister, maybe his mom, and someone else standing over to the left. There's also another picture of the boy in white, a girl, and are those graves? Like, what are those? Victor talks to Tabitha about that night and expresses so much regret about his sister and how he didn't protect her. Tabitha tells him he was just a little boy. Tabitha then focuses on one picture in particular, and we see her grab one up for closer examination. Victor said that's where his mother went the night when the bad things happened, and we see that it's a drawing of that freaking lighthouse. Remember the lighthouse from the season finale of season 1? Tabitha also saw this place in a dream during that season 2. Victor said that his mother went to save the children locked in the tower. We then switch to Ethan and Julie walking out of the diner with Mrs. Lou when they see Boyd and Kenny walking by with the wheelbarrow. Kenny hears something and stops for a moment and asks the others if they hear that too. We then take a look at Sarah's old house with one of the randoms from the bus running out screaming for help, covered in blood. We then switch to Jim approaching the RV that he told Randall to meet him at earlier that episode so that they could observe the people creature monsters. Jim is surprised to see a van parked on the road and notices a bloodstain in the open trunk area. Jim calls for Randall but is instead answered by Donna, who is tied to a freaking tree while bleeding from the head? Jim asks Randall, "What the f-?" And Randall says, "New plan," when end credits. Yes, the episode ends here, but man, oh man, was this one hell of an episode. Martin was absolutely right. He warned Boyd, he warned him and told him that the creatures that come out of the woods were not the worst thing. Our characters are now being attacked in their dreams? What happened in that house at the end of the episode? I remember that guy when he and his sister were cursing out Sarah when she went there looking for her stuff. Is she okay? And what is up with Randall? Why is my man acting like this? You know what? Screw it. You know what? Let's just ask Randall.
Hey, AJ.
How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing today?
I'm all right, mate. Thank you. I'm good.
Nice haircut, man.
Thanks. Like you too, man. You got it yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm very excited to speak with you. I'm gonna ask some kind of hard questions, so I hope you're ready.
Go for it, mate.
I'm going to give you the first one. This is one I ask a few people, and people have struggled with it.
Okay.
Why is this show called From?
Your guess is as good as mine. Honestly, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Not sure.
No.
Why do you think it's called From?
No clue, man. I've been hoping somebody got it out of John, and I'm asking everybody at this point.
No, mate. Honestly, I don't think I've ever asked him. No, I don't know. Don't know.
Well, I love your portrayal of your character, Randall. He's probably the most talked about addition to the cast this season. But he's been portrayed as like a hothead on the show.
Mm.
I've seen your breakdancing videos, and you seem like the opposite of Randall.
Well, we haven't had an altercation yet, mate. Do you know what I mean? So, no, I'm joking. Yeah, I don't know.
How do you prepare yourself to tap into Randall's explosive, volatile emotions or his almost villainous character?
That's a good question. It's always empathy, really, because I mean, that's the starting point, right? Like Randall isn't an inherently bad person, I don't think. He's efficient, he's pragmatic, he can handle himself. He's put in a position where he can't trust people. Like, how does he trust these people? And it's just high stakes. It's tense. People are dying. People are shooting out tires with shotguns and trying to tell you can't leave. So it's like, yeah, I'm putting myself in that sort of, you take away my freedom. You put me in a corner and put my back against the wall. It's like, I don't like feeling like that. So I don't think anybody does. But you go into that, and the only way is forward to get out, right? So I dive in it that way personally. Yeah.
How do you decompress and detach from the character after filming like a really intense scene?
I go to the pub, mate.
Yeah, that's usually a good answer.
Or just I don't know, just exercise. I don't know, stuff like I don't know. The more you do it, the better you get at it. But sometimes if it's like really intense, it's kind of genre. It's always high octane kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it does. I don't know. You get used to it though, I think. And yeah, he's not been like super emotional yet, like Randall. So it's like he's had his back against the wall for sure. But yeah, you can decompress in many ways. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Now, this upcoming episode, I'm going to air this after this next episode, but this is going to be the one where like you kidnap Donna.
Mm. Can
you share any behind the scenes anecdotes or memorable moments while filming that kidnapping and interrogation scene?
Mate, it was so cold. Like, so cold. And some idiot vis-a-vis me thought it'd be a good idea to have Randall walking around with his shirt open all the time. So, I mean, and there's, there's a lot of people in the scene and it took a little while to shoot. So we're like, out in the woods for like several hours. It's cold and you're trying to be menacing, but you're kind of shivering and you're doing this, but then you're really doing it. So, yeah, I don't know. That was tough, but kind of funny looking back in retrospect. Yeah.
Are there any like maybe specific developments or maybe specific episodes that for Randall that you're particularly excited for viewers to see?
Yeah, 8 and 9 for sure. 8, 9, and also 10. Like, I just like. I'm excited for the fans to see where Randall's actions take him and the consequences of what then takes him later on. Which is I'm excited for that.
Can you discuss at all maybe like the collaborative process for you between the writers, the director, and shaping Randall's character arc? Yeah,
I mean, it's just getting those scripts and then just getting to work and really just because I came super late to the party as well. So getting into that kind of that zone with everybody was just it just felt really organic and it was on the page really. And I just sort of had this sort of inkling. It's like, I know 100% know who this guy is. Like I just know who he is. And I just think it was just a smooth sailing kind of thing, super open, collaborative, it was great.
How do you think you best personally relate to Randall as a character? In what ways are you different than him?
I think I'm nicer. I think. But, I mean, that's subjective. I don't know. Similar in a way that if I care about you, if you're on my inner circle, there's not much I wouldn't do for you. I think. But so we align like that. Other than that, I'm not too sure.
What have you learned from playing this really complex character?
What have I learned? That I should probably make sure that my characters should close their shirts. Yeah.
Okay. Well. Now you worked with Ian. You worked with Donna's character. what kind of preparations do you do with them or to establish the dynamic and the tension? Because like the scenes with Ian are like really intense. Like I love those, but how do you guys collaborate? I
don't know. We run lines a little bit here and there. But outside of that, I mean, those guys are just such pros and they're just so good. It's like when you get to work, it's like you're not really working. It just sort of falls into place. Do you know what I mean? And because it's on the page, right? So it's like, you know, and those guys have had their characters for, 2 seasons. I've only had mine for 1. Right? So they're already there. We're just such great bounce boards of energy, right? So you just come in and it's just sort of there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know it's probably a challenge coming into season 2, but man, you've done a fantastic job. It's really, really explosive and I very much enjoy it. So do all of my fans. Just wanted to thank you one more time for giving us this opportunity to speak with you. And I hope to see more of you. I haven't seen all the episodes yet, but I hope we see more of you after.
Yeah. Stay tuned, man. Stay tuned. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to be spreading this interview out. One quick thing. One thing I did wanted to share was that I've been sharing on social media for people to take up the From Challenge. It's a hashtag of mine. My theory is that after people see the first 7 minutes of the first episode, they're going to be instantly hooked and they're going to come across and get into the show. Otherwise, they could walk away, but 7 minutes is what I think it takes. I just wanted to share that with you in case you ever came across it on social media. I'm really doing my best to promote you guys.
Yeah, that's great, man. We'll look out for that for sure.
And that is it. What an incredible episode with clues and almost gives us answers. Well, it gave us some answers. The people creature monsters are not the worst thing to be afraid of. What did you think of this episode? Is this one of the better episodes? What do you think will happen next with Victor and Jade and Tabitha? I can't wait to talk to you all about this one in the comments while we wait for that next episode. But again, if you're new here, please do me a favor, consider giving this video a like. And before you go on to your next video, please go ahead and subscribe so you can join the FROMily as we recap and break down each episode right after it airs. Otherwise, I'm going to have to check you guys later. Peace.